So as we go forward here, this would not have been possible without our sponsors. And so I would like to say again, thank you very much to our diamond sponsors, Antmicro, Google, and Intel, as well to our platinum sponsor, Infineon and Nordic, our gold sponsor, NXP, and our silvers, Goliath and Memfault. Like I say, they have made this possible for us all. And then thank you also to Bay Libre, because they'll be helping to make sure we can have the videos available. The hybrid event is definitely a challenge, and I think we'll be working through this. The videos will be posted after the event in batches, and we're looking at some other ways of making them available to the attendees even earlier, but that's still work in progress. Now, again, this event would not have been possible without our volunteers. So thank you very much to the program committee members, Anas, Carls, David, Eugene, Flavio, Jimmy, Jonathan, Keith, Maureen, Michael, and Nicole. They were the ones who helped curate the content. And so if you've enjoyed the show, please let them know. If you haven't enjoyed the show, you can let me know. And thank you very much to the people who stepped in to help. We've had a couple people who couldn't show up at the last minute, and Brian and Kumar have very kindly stepped in to help us make these rooms happen and help the interaction happen for the virtual event attendees. Also, none of this would have been possible without our speakers submitting. We had a record number of speakers and sessions, and we had to change the format a little bit around. But as you can see, there are actually over 58 presenters we've had, 37 virtual, 21 in person. We have the numbers that have come in for attendees. We have 386 attendees, and 236 were virtual, have registered, and 150 were here in person, which was more than we were we were worried what would be happening with all the situation right now. One of the little stats that's there is we had 25 women basically registered to attend. So 6% of all the attendees were women. So I'm sort of happy to see some diversity starting to come in here. At least Maureen and I are, because usually it was us. And then we've also had here, we had 33 countries represented in our attendance. And of that, 17 countries were here in person. So thank you very much to the people who've traveled internationally to get here and be part of all this with us. In fact, after the US, the most number of attendees we've had were from Poland, and then Norway, then Australia, and then France. So very much appreciate that. We'll have more stats and make that available later. Overall, though, we had 4 tracks, 2 in person and 2 virtual, 2 tutorials, and we focused on tutorials on the day 0 as a response of the feedback we had from the last session. We had 2 mini comps this time, and there were 52 individual sessions. So there's a lot of content out there that we'll be making available and hopefully will be useful to the developers in this community. Now, the thing we can use your help with is if you are sitting there with your laptop open at some point, just take this survey. It's short, it's less than 5 minutes probably, if you just want to click through it. But we'd like to get any feedback you want to give us so we can improve our next event. This is definitely a learning experience for all of us at this point now. And this information, we took it very seriously last year, and that was part of the reason we've ended up doing it this way this year. So I'll put the link up later, and it'll be mailed out to you. But I just would like to please invite that you take a few minutes and just get that for us. So with that, we'll go into the final panel. Now, we've decided to do this with these kind TSC members agreed to be on here for an Ask Me Anything type of session. And so we have Chris Freed, Jimmy Johnson, Jonathan Barry, Keith Short, Marty Bolivar, and Maureen Helm, and David Leach. Yeah, that one didn't make it on the slide. I'm sorry, I'll fix that later. Yeah, okay. Huh. Whatever. Yeah, those two aren't matching. Anyhow, so I'd like anyone to just basically raise your hand if you've got a question for them. And then I'll be down there, and Brett will help me get the mic to you to ask your question, and then they can, on the stage, answer, and we can discuss it further. And to get things started off, my first question for you guys is, what got you most excited this week here at the event? What was the most interesting session or insight that you had? Go ahead, Chris.
For me, it was absolutely seeing the community in person, face to face, because I joined the Zephyr community about 3 years ago and have been pretty highly active. And I mean, I've interacted with everyone. So I mean, this is really the first opportunity I've had to say hello and pleased to meet you in real life. So that's basically it.
I have to agree that that was actually the first thing that I was thinking of as well. As a community, it's interesting that this project, you know, when I describe this project to my friends who are not in the embedded space, but they're still technical, it's you know, I tell them that we work with sometimes our competitors, sometimes our customers, but we work together on this common code base and this ecosystem. And it's a lot of fun to work with all of you guys. I enjoy the project a lot. So it's good to see some of you guys for the first time or seeing you again from previous events. But I guess to answer one of the part of that question, I think the favorite session might have been Marty's, because he taught me something about C that I had kind of ignored for the last 30 years. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun.
Did I miss that part? Should I say my favorite session?
Should I go next?
Yeah.
I was going to talk about community, and we're not going to do it again.
I could do it again if you want.
Been involved with Zephyr for some time as well, and what I noticed a pattern in a lot of the sessions, there was sessions around, you know, the advancements in X or new versions of Y, and to me it represents the maturity of the technology, and that there's not just, oh, we're making a better version of it, but there are people who are actively engaged in creating a better and better version of Zephyr. So on one hand, it's becoming, you know, an amazing piece of technology, but also people are continuing to invest to make it more and more mature. So that was exciting to see.
Marie, go.
Yeah, for me, it was just the hallway track and the you know, having coffee with folks and getting to meet everybody. I mean, there are a lot of people that we get to talk to on a day-to-day basis on phone calls and Discord and GitHub and whatever. And so there's the usual suspects, right, that we've had a chance to get to meet before the pandemic started. But so it's great to see all those people again, but then there's a whole bunch of new people that are here that I've never had a chance to meet. So for me, that was, I think, the highlight for sure.
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I can only say it's just nice to see open source working. I think to kind of amplify what Jonathan was saying, like, I feel like at the past few, you know, conferences, this is the second time we've had our own dedicated conference, which is amazing. But past conferences, it's been like, hey, here it is, like, try it. And now we're getting a lot of talks that are like, we tried it, and it works. And you know, so I think there have been some questions from the maintainers, like, really? It works? So that's great that the answer is yes. And you know, it's really validating, and it feels really good to meet everybody in person. And it's nice to know that Zephyr hasn't slowed down during the pandemic, but I have a feeling like getting a chance to see each other, there's going to be this explosion coming up for 3.2, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm going to stick on the community theme here. You know, meeting everybody face to face has been really great. And you know, what it's really opened up, right, are those hallway conversations, those chances to collaborate. You know, I was chatting with Marty, he's like, you know, I think we can help out on West, give him some help there. And then there was somebody else that reached out to me. It's like, hey, you guys are doing a lot of work with Z-Test. We need to, you know, make sure we're looking ahead at Twister 2. So I'm looking forward to those opportunities to collaborate and keep growing the community that way.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, we're fairly new, but you know, it was about a year ago that I started looking at alternate RTOSes for our development kit, and came across Zephyr, and it looked like a great, great tool for that. And I started trying to do some drivers for our current development that we're doing, and submitted them, and got a lot of help from people that I just met this Monday, which is you know, great to see people face to face, and people have helped me and our team for the past 9 months to get stuff in. So the community is great, yeah, definitely.
Okay. So we're not done. We're going forward. There are challenges. What's the top of mind for your the challenge that you're focusing on, concerned about, want to make better? Let's start with Jimmy and let him roll back this way, if you don't mind.
I think the biggest challenge for T-Mobile has been just integrating into the open source community. T-Mobile is not a big open source company, and it's taken a lot of talking and convincing to some people in the company that this is the right path to take. So I'm hoping that maybe the rest of the community can help in that respect. But I think that's been the most difficult challenge. Other than that, it's been extremely supportive, and the technology is pretty amazing, especially coming here and seeing the breadth of different products and technologies that's been applied to. I had no idea that some of the projects that people are working on in Zephyr, so it's been eye-opening.
Very cool.
Macrobatics.
Oh, that's a good one. Never heard that before.
But I do see for the greater Zephyr community, the growth is going to pose some challenges that gets managed well, so the community stays vibrant, and multiple voices, multiple companies still continue to get heard.
Yeah, I would echo that, and I think to not just be a plus-oneer, I think that there are certain limitations in the way that Zephyr's hardware model we're starting to outgrow, and I think it'll be really interesting to see how we kind of head off those issues at the pass, given that our rate of growth is increasing.
So I think, as we continue to grow and we see new code added to the tree at an accelerating rate, we see this, new people come in, knowing the maturity of a given corner, a driver, or a subsystem, whatever. It's natural, right, when we introduce new features and we do it iteratively, piece by piece by piece. And so, we don't want people to contribute a giant subsystem all at once that's complete, right? We want to do it piece by piece. But how do we articulate and how do we make it clear to people, the maturity of a given piece, right? Like, is it something that's new and experimental, or is it something that, has been used in a product and has been well exercised, well tested? How do we make that clear to people?
Making sure and helping new users be successful with Zephyr. So companies, individuals, students, what's their, how can they learn about Zephyr, decide to use Zephyr, build their first, hello world with Zephyr, and then continue to grow? We've been making huge strides in that sort of experience. And how do we continue as we go into more ecosystems in a broader community?
I think, as the community grows, there are still areas that we need help in. I'll give a shout out to the safety committee, which will need some help, and they, soon will be a working group established so that you don't have to be a platinum member to participate. So, that would be a useful place. The managing of the growth is always going to be a challenge, and just remember that a lot of us have other jobs too. So, cut them a break if they don't quite behave in the same way that you think they should if they were your working partner. But generally, just managing the growth is I'm hoping that's the problem we deal with, is that we grow and keep growing.
My thoughts are that I feel like one challenge could be providing sufficient educational resources for new users as well. Yeah. And I think that's going to come in terms of videos, like recipe series, that sort of thing. And then also encouraging people to join the upstream party, because it really is, really fast moving. And it's good to live upstream. Upstream first is my motto. So yeah.
Okay. So with that, we'll probably open it up Have people been thinking of questions? And just raise your hands if you want to ask a question. We'll get you the mic. Okay, that corner.
The farthest away from you. You couldn't have done that better.
Hi, the guy that sits in the back asked the first question. So I'm Luis Villa. I had the privilege of making a presentation before. So thank you for accepting that. I guess I probably going to make more than one question, but at least my first question would be, what is our roadmap on that educational front? We had this discussion with Marty at the table. You know, people, we use Zephyr, but we abstract Zephyr as well, so that people don't have to write Zephyr when they use our tech, because we don't want them to, because we are afraid in a certain sense that if what we are trying to put forward, which is an open source platform for learning power electronics, if the person has to go through the process of writing a driver for anything in Zephyr in order to add a new measurement, because they need, for some reason, that measurement in their application, then we're going to lose the person in the process. So what is the roadmap there? Like what kind of content we're thinking about? In our university, we are thinking about integrating Zephyr in our teaching curriculum, because we think it's an interesting way of teaching microelectronics, microcontrollers, if we can hide enough stuff away so that the hard part hits them later. So how do you see that process going for the next maybe 1, 2, or 3 years on it?
Sure, I absolutely agree with you there. Excuse me. And that's one of the items that was discussed at the TSC face-to-face earlier this week. So we determined that, yeah, video series, blog posts, sort of preemptive suggestions for even just automation, to say, oh, you're changing this area of code. Just to double check, have you checked out that it satisfies these requirements? Did you check the documentation, that sort of thing? And I think there has been some talk about looking for potential authors to write course material and that sort of thing, because you're right, it is absolutely necessary. And frankly, I think that Zephyr is probably the best platform for a university course on real-time operating systems and microelectronics. In terms of abstracting, your question in terms of abstracting away driver details and that sort of thing, at the application layer, it probably is good to have some sort of air gap between, you know, what your application wishes to achieve and the hardware that it's talking to. So I think that's fully reasonable, and but in the end, I mean that Zephyr is also pretty easy to use, so if students choose to do that, I think that's great too.
I'll add too that since you're involved in the community, that we would certainly welcome content to help facilitate this, because it is something that's being discussed in multiple subgroups as well, because starting to seed the universities and engaging with professors who teach courses in OS principles and things like that might, creating that content or help them create that content would be awesome and would help facilitate that.
It's worth calling out, maybe a pre-question, that there's a lot of content being generated by member companies. For example, Nordic just launched a training course. Is my audio working?
Yeah. It is. I could.
Nordic just launched Nordic Academy, which is an amazing course. We did a training here at ZDS, which we're releasing our training material. There's blog posts from other member companies describing not just how they're using Zephyr, but actually around technical content related to Zephyr. And the Zephyr blog has a lot of content that's coming from member companies as well as community members. But yeah, and we encourage contribution for third-party authors to the blog. But this theme of how do we help new users grow with Zephyr was a theme in the TSC. We even had a dedicated session just talking about what are the right things for us to do as a project, what things can we do formally and officially. And one area that we spent quite a bit of time was around moving beyond the documentation, right? We have really good documentation around all the different subsystems, even a good getting started guide, but how do we guide users through? So that's an area of investment that is definitely on the roadmap.
If I could just add something again really quickly. I know that a couple of our partners and community members are former professors. So if you like offline, I can provide you a couple of names, but I think it's a great idea to get research papers out there, to get them peer reviewed, not just in academia, but in actual industry as well. Absolutely. Sorry, didn't mean to.
Well, I'll add to that on a slightly different angle, I guess. It was a conversation I had with some people this afternoon, actually. We were talking about how Embedded World has this student day, right, where like just buses of students show up, and it's sort of reflecting on how this event, generates a lot of content that I think is good for education. And I think after last year's ZDS, one of the feedbacks we got was people wanted to see more introductory content. So it was kind of a mix of like, we want to see what the current state of the subsystem is and where the subsystem's going, but we also need to be generating content at events like this that's introductory level content. And maybe next year we have some students or have a student day, something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Going down the line.
Like we talked about at lunch, I think this is a gap. I think what Chris said is right, and yeah, I think we could use some help. I think we're all kind of hoping for more, and let's keep talking.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, move it forward. I'll say thank you for attending and for joining us in this first show, in this first in-person event, and may it be the first of many. There'll be coffee and pastries outside, and so feel free to continue the conversation. Thank you very much. And thank you to the panelists.